They separate us from our neighbors and they call it social distancing. It's actually a bigger plan, it's called social conditioning. They took away our privacy, there's always someone listening. They're rigging the elections, planning riots for the citizens. The government has always lied, it's history repeating. But the problem is the schools dumb you down so you believe them. If you try to speak the truth inside a tweet, then they delete it. Whole administration Satanists who claim they praising Jesus. Every year there's a new name for enemies that we're facing. It's Al-Qaeda, then ISIS, and now American Patriots. Who would have thought those who love the country the most would be hated on by folks who call America home? Both political parties are equally just as evil. They've been working for themselves, don't give a damn about the people. Black, white, yellow, brown, humanity needs you. Cause united we stand, divided they will defeat you. The man on the news says the problem is me. I'm just a small town boy with big American dreams.
Good morning. I am Anatolian Angelisheva, and this is Patriots Must Rise. There's a lot going on, so let's talk about it. Joe Biden, with all the stuff that has been in the news, it's actually going to be a bigger deal for Joe Biden than the left wants you to understand. The reality is that if he was actually an asset for the Democrats, Joe Biden would be protected. But the fact is that we have this unprecedented buffoon that was installed into the office during a time where even our youth were upset that the Democrats intentionally destroyed our economy. All right, more college-age kids are leaning toward the conservative side than traditionally because of the fact that they remember COVID. They were going through their teenage years and finishing up high school when they weren't allowed to do anything that a college-age kid or a high school kid would have been allowed to do because of these tyrannical morons that don't like the fact that we are Americans. We were born to rebel. Yes, my name's Anatol Isheva, but at the same time, I was born here. I was ingrained with the idea that this country's very fabric was forged on individual rights, where if the government gets in the way, you slit that representative's throat. Now, that's not normally the way that children are raised to think. But in my culture, freedom is more sacred than life. Because freedom is a gift won for us by the blood spilled on Calvary by Jesus Christ, not given to us by some government that will rise and fall. It is eternal, but it is our obligation to defend it. So, as the left sees Joe Biden becoming more and more of a deficit to them than an asset, they are more willing to throw him under the bus. So we may very well see a firing squad for treason for this guy. Beside that, there's a lot of swampy Democrats and maybe even Republicans that were a part of this scandal that knew, at least by proxy, that it was going on, if not taking a cut themselves, that want to protect their butt. And the sooner they get rid of Joe Biden, so new charges, very bogus charges, came out against the arguably best president that we've had in my lifetime yesterday. And the indictment cited several texts that he made on January 6th. I'd be interested to know who the texts were actually to, but we'll probably never learn that. But, and I have it here. The first one reads, "Please respect the Capitol Police and go forward to the Capitol peacefully to make your voices heard." How is this treason? And yet, at the same time, Joe Biden and his influence peddling, his and his son's involvement with China and Ukraine, is blatantly treason. The double standard is beyond reality. It really is. I do not know how or why anyone would ever take a Democrat seriously again. But this is really a distraction. It's a kangaroo court to keep Trump in a negative light because he is so wildly popular in America today that basically only the press and the diehard liberals are the ones that are against him. Joe Biden has overstayed his welcome. In fact, he could very well be looking at a firing squad because that's the constitutional punishment for treason in coming months. I look forward to that. I gotta admit that. I really hope that they're selling tickets. I will buy 1,000 of them and invite everybody that I run into. Because the man deserves it. But here's the reality. The left spent 5 years, an entire year during the campaign season of 2016, and his entire campaign, his entire administration, and well into today. So we're looking at 8 years spending all their time focusing on corruption of Donald Trump. The swampy Democrats and swampy Republicans, I have to admit that, have unsuccessfully impeached him and indicted him countless times. I think we all have lost count of how many times President Trump has been in the news over false charges. And yet we still are hearing about it. Okay? There comes a time when the public has to start looking at the cop, the arresting officer, and whether or not he's on the up and up. When that cop is singling out a single citizen with no fruit to bear in the charges. And that's where we're at. Basically, the Democrats are crying wolf just to distract from the fact that everything that Donald Trump has done in his administration, everything that he has said that he would do, he has done. And the bulk of America feels that he was cheated out of the presidency. The handful of wotards that don't believe that, I actually believe they do know that the election was stolen. The thing is that they don't care that it was stolen. This is very important because if a large enough population in America doesn't actually care about the integrity of an election to the point that they would sell out America and conspire against the integrity of an election, which has been proven in 2020. I can cite Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules, Mike Lindell's Symposium. I myself was involved in a semi being pulled over that was full of ballots, used and already counted ballots that were bound from Maricopa County from Vancouver, Washington. Ironically enough, that semi-trailer turned up missing the very next morning out of the impound lot. So I believe that it did actually make its way to Maricopa County, and those votes were counted again. The fact that so many people question the election should have been reason enough to do a thorough investigation. Instead, the state intentionally overlooks it because that's the level of corruption that we have. The Supreme Court sold out America when they refused to hear the cases against Philadelphia, Maricopa County, Arizona, and several others, brought on by Texas, Tennessee, and I forget who else. The fact that there were so many people standing outside of Capitol Hill on January 6th should have been an illustration of how unpopular Joe Biden actually was. Okay? I have asked high school and college age kids that go to my church, why is it they didn't go with the norm? Why is it that they are all of a sudden leaning so far right politically? We basically know the answer because these are Slavic kids, but they're raised in America, so there would be peer influence. Several of them have told me, we will never forget. We will never forget how the Democrats destroyed our economy, how they shut us down and stole our youth because they wanted to steal an election. In the world that I grew up in the world that I live in, nobody believes the government. And they shouldn't. They should always be considered the enemy. They should never be trusted. The press should be represented as the pillar of honesty. And yet we know firsthand. Look at CNN. Look at the Communist News Network. We know firsthand there's no credibility there. They're just towing the party line. Fox the same way. I do my own research. I have several programs that I've written. I call them filters that are based on AI that pull the consensus of news out of the internet and look for certain parameters. If certain keywords are brought in to the article early on, the article is automatically dismissed as being fake news. Because it's these keywords, these buzzwords that the press uses to subliminally get under your skin and trigger you for whatever reaction they want. COVID denier, racist, what's another one? Amosexual. God, there are so many. But you use these words and I automatically dismiss it. The thing is, we have to look past what the news is saying. We have to look past what our friends want us to do. We have to do our own research. And we have to vote with our own moral code. Mine automatically says if you are a Democrat, you are not worth living, much less voting for. After all, anybody that is willing to murder their own child, anybody that is willing to completely desecrate not only their own body, but the body of a child for quote-unquote gender-affirming care is not worth your time. The press is very good on both sides at pulling on the, I want to call it social heartstrings. These are buzzwords and trigger factors in our everyday social lives, brought on by the cultural norm of the day, that literally start making you feel guilty for feelings in a certain way. And it's based on the majority rule. Nobody wants to stand out. Nobody wants to be the outlier. And that's what they're counting on. They're counting on peer pressure pulling you into the agenda that they want to achieve. Don't buy into it. Okay? The man that we are trying to remove from office doesn't belong there. He never belonged there. He told Dan Rather that Dan Rather should never assume that he is not corrupt. And that was 1974. Okay? He was a week in to his first term as a senator. And Joe Biden flat out told the world that he was corrupt. Anyway, guys, that's what I got for today. I hope you enjoyed these videos. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends, get them involved in the fight. But most importantly, live free, die well, and love your neighbor as Christ has loved you. I am Anatoly Anatolisova, and this is Patriots Must Rise. Thank you.